Do you know if your marketing campaigns are actually paying off for your business? Maybe you use Google Analytics and you have some idea of how your marketing is performing. Maybe you dive into your sales funnel tracking every now and again, or even into your social media insights. But do you ever wish that you could get more information about your traffic and what actually happens when people visit your website or sales funnel? Well, UTMs are the magical things that can give you that helpful information. In today's video, we're going to talk about what UTMs are, what they tell us, and how we can use that information for our benefit. If you're new here, my name is Kari and I'm a business operations specialist. I help successful businesses with messy metrics clean them up so they can get simple, accurate information from their data, enabling them to grow more quickly and more efficiently. So what are UTMs anyway? UTM actually stands for Urchin Tracking Module. I know that sounds a little bit weird, but it's a type of code that was developed by a business called Urchin Software Corporation, which Google acquired in 2005. This company developed Urchin Software, which now serves as the base for Google Analytics. However, the original name stuck. So we'll refer to them as UTMs in this video, but you also might see them called UTM codes, UTM tags, or UTM parameters online. So what are UTMs? Quite simply, they're a basic piece of code that you can add to the end of a URL, which gives you data on your marketing performance. You might be thinking that sounds an awful lot like the way that Google Analytics works, and you're right. With Google Analytics, you can see how people are getting to your website, and you can learn what's working on driving traffic to your site and what isn't. With that information, you can focus on replicating your successful methods and improving the not so successful ones. Google Analytics is a fantastic, powerful tool, but it won't tell you the story all by itself. And I'm not discouraging you from using Google Analytics without UTMs, but you can gain so much helpful data by using them. In fact, I talked about 5 key metrics in Google Analytics that you should be using for your business, and I'll link that video for you in the description box below. So a basic Google Analytics setup is a great start, but UTMs can take your data even further. UTMs give you an extra layer of understanding to your traffic sources, which then helps you to make better decisions for the marketing of your business. Even if you've never heard the term before, you've probably seen a UTM before and didn't even know it. Let's take a look at this basic URL. The URL is karipoppleton.com/dashboards. When you add the UTM parameters to it, it looks like this. Now there's a whole lot going on there, so let's break it down. The first thing to note is that the part of the URL that comes after the question mark is the UTM parameter. In case you're wondering, adding this to your link doesn't impact the link as long as the UTM is set up correctly. All it changes is the tracking capabilities. So let's talk about the different components of this link. There are 5 different parameters that can be tracked in Universal Analytics and 3 additional ones that are now available in Google Analytics 4. In our example, we can see the following pieces. Source. This section tells you the brand where your visitors are coming from, whether it's Facebook, Google, LinkedIn, Instagram, etc. Here, it's the email provider ActiveCampaign. Next, we have medium, which tells us the type of traffic that's being sent to your site. This will often be something like referral, social, CPC, or paid traffic. And in this example, it's email, and that's coming from ActiveCampaign. Campaign parameter is what tells you why you're sending the traffic to your site. For example, is it to highlight a specific product or a spring sale? In this example, we can see where product name would be swapped in. These first 3 UTM components are mandatory for all of the UTMs that you create, and these last 2 that we're going to discuss help you to be more specific about where your traffic is coming from, but you can choose whether you want to use them or not. The UTM parameter for term, in our example, is used to identify the subject line of the exact email that was pushing the traffic to the site. And content, which you can use to drill down even farther for more information and use to get as granular as even identifying which link from an email the person clicked to bring you to your site. And in Google Analytics 4, you actually have the ability to add 3 additional parameters, which are source platform, creative format, and marketing tactic. So what does all this mean, and what does it actually tell you? Well, when someone clicked on the example link, I would be able to see that someone arrived at this page from an email I sent with the subject line, Learn More, in a campaign with information about my data measurement services, and they clicked on the first link in the email. Not only that, but with Google Analytics configured properly, I'd also be able to see the actions they took once they landed on that page. Maybe they become a lead, or book a call, or make a purchase. And I know all of that because I took an extra minute when scheduling my email to create those UTM links and utilize them in my email. Hopefully you're beginning to see how powerful it can be to use UTMs to evaluate the impact of those marketing efforts. Now, while UTMs give us a huge amount of data when it comes to looking at where our traffic is actually coming from, you can see that the URLs are not the nicest looking. This can be easily hidden when linking in an email or other place with a hidden link, but they do need to be prettied up with a link shortener like bit.ly or an extension like Pretty Links if you're using them in a place where the link is going to be visible. And knowing the capabilities capabilities of UTMs, your mind might now be swirling with all the possibilities of what can be tracked. And there's a few important things to note about making the most of the power of UTMs. First, you can't use UTMs without Google Analytics. As I always recommend, Google Analytics can and should be properly added to all of the websites you own, as well as any other software or tools that your customer will pass through on their journey that allows for Google Analytics tracking. So this would include things like your website, your funnel tool like ClickFunnels, FG Funnels, High Level, Kajabi, etc., your cart tool like ThriveCart or SamCart, and so on. Just remember, you can't add Google Analytics to other people's websites, social media platforms, and some software tools. When utilizing UTMs, you only want to use them when you're directing traffic to a website or property that you own, and never use them to link to a website or property that you don't own or can't install code on. So for example, you would use a UTM when you're sending traffic from an email to a blog post on your website. You wouldn't use a UTM to link your blog post to your own sales page. Why not? Well, once you place that second UTM, it would break the original attribution. And instead of seeing that sales page traffic actually came from your email, it would look like the sales page traffic came from within your own website. In order to see where the traffic originally came from, you would only want to use a UTM from that original source. Okay, so let's recap. UTMs are pieces of code that track how marketing campaigns are performing so that you can see where your traffic is really coming from and the actions that are taken as a result. There are multiple parameters that can be used in a UTM parameter, including the ones that must be present in every UTM: source, medium, and campaign. All of these parameters give you extra additional bits of valuable information that you can use to base your marketing decisions off of, especially as you dive deep into which efforts are really moving the needle in your business. You can and should use Google Analytics to gather data on your business's performance anyway, and UTMs will just take your data to that next level. I hope that this video has helped you to gain a deeper understanding of what UTMs are and the information that they can provide for you. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and stay tuned, because in my next video, I'll be covering how to actually create UTMs and where you can go to find the information that they provide to you. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.